All right, let's get right to it. So today we're going to talk about editing attributes on shapes and text. These things are pretty uniform across all the objects, so we'll use a rectangle and this text right here. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in. So there are a lot of ways to zoom in Sketch, so this is a quick aside. You can click on the plus and minus on this magnifying glass. You can, where is it? Here we go. You can pick it from this menu. If you have a trackpad, you can pinch to zoom out and spread to zoom in. And you can also hold command while scrolling on the mouse, zoom in and out. There are a lot of different ways to do it. You can find the one that works best for you. I'm more into the spread and pinch, but everyone's got their preference. Alright, so let's talk about attributes. So here we have a rectangle. I'm just going to run down this list on the right, and I'm going to do it as quickly as possible because there's a lot to cover. So first we have position, size, transform. We talked about that last time. Here we have radius underneath. Radius is the corner radius, so this is how rounded the corners are. You can round them as much as you want up till you have a circle. Or you can not round them. We'll put it at like 5, 7. Looks nice. You have this thing about shared styles. We're not going to get into that in this tutorial. We'll talk about it later. Opacity. Opacity is how see-through something is. So the lower the opacity, the more you can see through it. The higher it is, the more opaque it is. Blending modes are, again, a whole tutorial in themselves. Look at all those options. So we're not going to talk about that now. Here we have fills. Fills you get, when you open it, you get a color picker. I'm not going to get into the details of all of these options, which are about different color gradients and fill modes, but I will talk about the color picker. It's easy to use. You just click and drag until you find a color you like. Here's a nice blue, the green. You can adjust the settings, fine-tune everything here. You can input the hex value. We'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, dark blue. You have this HSB color space. If you aren't familiar with that, I would recommend Googling it. If you click on that, you can actually change the color space to RGB. Another thing, if you're not familiar, I recommend looking it up. A is basically opacity. As I decrease it, you see it gets more clear. But this is referring specifically to the fill rather than the whole shape. Underneath you have global colors. These are presets. You can add to them if you want. Underneath you have document colors. Same deal. You can add to them. So let's say I make this light blue. I just added it. There you go. Saved across my document. Whereas global colors are going to be in every document I open ever. Document ones are only in the current document and any pages, subsequent pages that I make. Making pages I'll talk about another time. So you have this blending mode again here on your rectangle. Opacity is for the whole thing, or for the whole fill. You have a lot of places you can change that one. Border, same exact thing, more or less. You also have this setting for the position of the border. So the way that works is it's referring to how the border is placed in relation to the edge of the shape. So if I click this checkbox, I can turn off the border, but you see the shape still has its outer edge. So inside means that the border follows along the edge of the shape on the inside. So the outer edge of the border is on the edge of the shape. Center means the center of the border is on the edge of the shape. And outside means the inner edge of the border is on the edge of the shape. So hopefully you followed that. Thickness is how many pixels thick the border is. So this actually will more clearly demonstrate what's going on here. So that border just moved from the outside to the inside. Now it's on the center. Now it's on the outside. You get the idea. Um, and that covers fills and borders. Oh, and then there is shadow. So shadow is just that. It creates a shadow. I'm going to turn this down. And you can see the shadow right here behind the shape. So it has a color picker. We're going to stick with the default. And then it has these X, Y, blur, and spread options. So X and Y are the X and Y position relative to the shape. So you can move it farther away if you want to give it like more perspective. It looks like it's kind of up floating here. Blur is how blurred, the shadow is. So just how defined it is. And then spread is how much the shadow spreads, so how much bigger than the original shape it is. And you can see how these things are used for perspective. Then you have inner shadow. This is the shadow within the object, so coming from the edges inward. Same thing, X and Y, if I want to really do that. Blur, spread. Yeah, when blur's at 0, you have like a hard edge, but you get the idea. And the last thing is, here it's Gaussian blur. You have a whole bunch of options on blur. I'll talk about that in detail another time, but when you turn it on, you see it blurs the object. And by adjusting the amount, I can blur it more or less, to the point where it's almost not even there. And it's back. Alright, so now we're going to look at text. Text is very similar to shapes, except it has text options, which you'll probably be familiar with if you've ever worked with any sort of text editor. Basically, you have typeface, so you have all these options. You can set it to Arial and instead of Helvetica, and then weight, regular, italic, bold, bold. Those will be different depending on the different typefaces. Some have more, some have less. That depends on which fonts you have installed. Color, very straightforward, just like a fill. I'm not going to talk about options. We'll get into it another time. Size, that's just your font size. Now it's bigger. Alignment, so this again, it should be familiar to you. Left, center, right. Justify will kind of spread the space between the letters. Width, auto makes it so everything fits on one line. Fixed is just freeform, something you've changed it to. And for this, we'll just use auto. I'm going to change this to left align. And then spacing, you can change space between characters, lines, paragraph. I won't get into the detail. Opacity, same thing. Blending modes, another time. Fills, so you can add a fill, and this is useful for shared styles, which I'll talk about another time, but basically you have the ability to use that. Borders, you can add a border if that's your thing. Wow. Shadows, you can add shadows just like a shape. Same with inner shadow. As you can see, if I turn it off and back on, it makes a pretty distinct difference. Oops. Interesting. And then a blur, just the same. You can add it. So I don't know if it was clear, but by clicking on the checkbox next to a fill or a border or anything, that turns it on and off. And that covers everything. So thanks for watching. Hope this is helpful. If you have any questions, post them in the comments section. And check out sketchdatastudio.com. Find me on Twitter, Tyler N. Wolf.